Attipoe is from Ghana, right?
Yes, Ghana, yes.
So while Hope is preparing this, I can tell you a couple of things about him. He's a wonderful PhD student. He's my student at the University of Georgia. This is his first time at the conference. He's from Ghana. And his first name is Hope, which is a wonderful name. But every time I want to look for him, like on email to see his last email, I look for Hope, and all the emails come, Hope you're doing well. So all the emails with Hope pop up. So.
Just like Dr. Dirani said, he is my major professor, and I'm original from Ghana. This particular research, is based on my home country, Ghana, and it is basically looking at training transfer, from Western countries to the context of Ghana. That's basically what it's about.
I can do that.
Okay. All right. Okay, Ghana's economy has been booming, has been growing very fast, especially since oil was discovered in Ghana over 10 decades ago. Many multinational organizations have invested heavily in Ghana, and part of their investment is to send Ghanaian employees from Ghana to Western countries like the United States to be trained, so that they can return to Ghana to transfer what they have learned, into the context of Ghana or to their various organizations in Ghana. However, the issue here is that the training that these employees receive is, based on Western approaches, about how Western organizations deal with HRD and HRM practices, and this also do impact the way they train these Ghanaians. And therefore, knowing that the context between Ghana and the United States are very, very different, it poses a problem for the Ghanaian employees to transfer what they have learned from the context of, the United States to that of Ghana. So transfer has become quite challenging for these Ghanaian trainees who receive training from the United States. And we all know that the literature says or demonstrates that training is affected by, the transfer of training is affected by both internal and external factors. Internal and external factors in terms of things that happen within the organization and things that happen outside the organization. And in Ghana specifically, the government has a lot of influence on policy making, on how organizations run business. There's a lot of, how would I call it, a lot of government control. It's not like the United States here where, the government doesn't have, that it doesn't impose certain, so much restrictions, that the capitalist system works so well in the United States as compared to Ghana. In Ghana, the capitalist system has not been developed so much that there's a lot of centralization of power, where the government control many policy decisions, and which trickles down to organization and how organizations behave. Similar to what I stated, so this is the statement of the problem. The statement of the problem, as I noted, is that when Ghanaians come to the United States to get training, they have the difficulty. The problem exists that they cannot transfer what they learn in the context of Ghana. So the purpose of the study is to examine and to propose how Western training could be redesigned. And 1, to be culturally appropriate for the Ghanaian context. And 2, to propose a culturally appropriate model which is appropriate for the Ghanaian context. And these are the research questions that Dr. Dirani and I developed. So the research question guiding this research are how to redesign training to be culturally appropriate for the Ghanaian context. And 2, how cultural factors affect transfer of Western training into the Ghanaian context. And here is a definition. I picked 2 definitions because, as you know, in the literature there are various definitions, by various scholars. So I picked 2 of those definitions that I thought, were quite impactful. And according to Comey and Handman, the concept of transfer of training is application of skills and knowledge that is gained from one context being transferred or applied into another context. And Borden and Ford, which, by the way, as many of you know, did quite a transformational or quite a fundamental research that on training transfer, which is cited by many scholars. Define transfer or transfer of training as the transfer of learned skills to the work context, or the application of knowledge, skills, attitudes learned from training on the job and subsequent maintenance of those skills over time during, for a certain period of time. So those are the 2 that are selected. Here is basically the standing of literature review. I'm going to go through a couple of key information that pertains to training transfer. The research shows that organizations spend billions of dollars on training their employees. However, there's an issue about the effectiveness of transferring those training to the research organization. So these have become a concern for organization. And specifically, only 10% of this expenditure that is spent on training actually result in training transfer, and that is quite a significant concern. And of course, the employer and the trainee want training transfer to occur. Here is a conceptual map showing our consolidation of training transfer. Okay, and as you can see here, the main factor here is culture. We're trying to look to examine how does the cultural and contextual issues in Ghana, how does that affect the transfer of training from Western countries in the context of Ghana. So here I have the international training context, which specifically in a Western country, and the expectation is that they are going to transfer what they learn, okay, after they have acquired the desired, a desired change, which is the development in their performance, or how do you call it, improved performance and skills and attitudes. And if that happens, they will in turn transfer those skills that was developed through the change that the employees are seeing into the organization. And as this change transfer to organization gains, and ultimately organization acquires organizational outcome based on the development that these employees receive, provided that the training that they received was effective and that the employees were able to transfer what they transferred to the organization. However, the issue of culture is very significant here because the cultural context of Ghana do impact how our employees transfer what they learn. Because specifically in the Ghanaian culture, what an individual learn is a communal affair, it's a communal thing. Unlike the US, where learning is more like an individual enterprise. In Africa, when an individual learns, you are not only learning for yourself, but you are learning to change the whole community. And therefore, your family is involved in that process. So whatever you learn from the Western context, you cannot go to an organization and say, okay, I've learned this from the United States, and therefore I want to transform this organization. Okay, it doesn't work like that, because one other issue is that in Ghana, seniority is a big thing. Okay, no matter how smart you are, you may have a college degree. However, if you are working in an organization where you have elderly people who may not have a college degree like you, okay, however, they have seniority in the organization. So even though they cannot be sent to the United States to receive training, however, when you receive that training and come back to the organization in Ghana, you are expected to respect them. You cannot come and say, okay, I've learned this from the United States and therefore I want to transfer the organization. They are not going to support you, and you're going to see a conflict in the organization. So that is very, very important. There is a cultural factor that can also affect the training of training transfer. Even within the organization, supervisors can also either inhibit the transfer process or facilitate it, because they can decide due to the fact that managers possess a lot of power. The power system in Ghana is what Hofstede described as a high power distance country. Okay, so the power distance between the employees and their employers or their supervisors is very wide. Okay, so if you are sent to the United States as an employee to receive training, you come back to Ghana, your organization in Ghana, to transfer what you learn, your supervisor can tell you that, you know, it's not going to allow you to transfer that training. And if that happens, you can't transfer what you learn. If you don't transfer, how is it going to be effective? Here is a conceptualization of how the culture, you know, affects the transfer process. But it's not only culture, but look at the cultural and the contractual dynamics based on Hofstede for national cultural dimension. As you can see here, the training context where let's say assume the Ghanaian trainees receive training is, you know, in the let's say for example, United States. And according to Hofstede, Western countries, specifically the United States, especially the United States, have a cultural orientation towards what? Individualism, where individuals, where people do things based on individual thinking. They want to do things thinking about themselves to improve themselves. However, in Ghana, the opposite of that is collectivism. In Ghana, that's a collective spirit, in a communal spirit. Whereby, as I told you, anything you learn within the context from the United States, when you come back to the context of Ghana, you don't think you are the individual. You think about the whole community, the whole family, the whole organization. Okay? And the second thing is with regards to power distance. Let me go back and explain this. In the US, you know, there's individualism, and Ghana is collectivist. And with regard to the power distance, the US has a low power distance, while Ghana has a high power distance. And as I explained, there is a wide gap, the power gap between managers and their employees. So there's that wide gap. Unlike the US, where, you know, they are more like co-equals. You know, they treat each other like, you know, co-equals, more like a team. With regard to the third one, masculinity, the US, you know, it generally has a masculine culture, while Ghana has more of a feminist culture. In terms of feminine, doesn't mean like being a female, however, just an orientation, or being kind, being loving, being caring, and being, you know, and for example, when I was growing up, for example, if I'm playing outside, I get injured, or if I'm playing, my parents might tell me, oh, take your time. You don't want to injure yourself, take your time, you know. Why in the US, they say, oh, I mean, if you injure yourself, you learn, you grow, you need to be tough. You need to be tough, you need your mind, you see what I'm saying? So that is just, you know, an example of that. And also, with regards to uncertainty avoidance, the US has a low uncertainty avoidance, while Ghana has a high uncertainty avoidance. In terms of Ghanaians don't like to, I mean, take risks. They don't like to take, they want rules and regulations to be laid down, and they want to follow those rules and regulations to the letter, step by step. They don't want any disruption or any disruptive in anything at all. That will how would I say, that will change their dynamics totally. Unlike the US, individuals like to take charge, like to, they know how to handle uncertainties. They know how to handle it more effectively. Whereby if there's any uncertainty, such like a sudden resignation of a manager, in the US system, people can step up to the plate. In Ghana, we're going to say, hey, I'm not going to be responsible. Because if I step up now, something goes wrong, I will lose my job. So there is that kind of fear of taking that initiative, unlike the US. So just basically, this is an international context as noted here, and culture is centered here as a central factor affecting the transfer process. And right here is the transfer effect or the transfer outcome, which is specifically with regard to the organization in Ghana. When the employee receives that training, is going to go through that process, the transfer process to transfer it in Ghana. And the effect can, specifically is employee development, performance, skill improvements, and change in attitude. Improve change in attitudes. This is a model that Dr. Dirani and I proposed. This model is adapted after the AHRD model. And it is basically analysis, design, develop, deliver, evaluate, and then finally debriefing. So I'm going to go through that quickly. In the analysis stage, you perform your needs assessment. You assess the needs organization. And what we are proposing here is if a trainer or a designer, whoever is responsible for training Ghanaian, is to propose that they visit Ghana. We are proposing that they visit Ghana to study the organization, study the people, study the culture. You understand the culture, and based on what they have learned, the needs that they think the organization needs, they return to the US and integrate what they have learned into designing the program so that it will be more effective. They have to incorporate the cultural context of Ghana into it. And so that is the design phase. And at this phase, specifically, that's when they identify performance objective, measurable performance objectives, which trainees are going to be measured against. In the development phase, development and testing phase, the trainer actually execute or employ the prototype of the training, which in this case we are proposing that they test that with a group of Ghanaians. They test that with a group of Ghanaians, and whatever they learn from that, they can use that to improve it before they deliver it. And the delivery phase is when is actually implemented. The program is actually implemented. And the evaluation phase is when the program is evaluated. You're going to evaluate the performance of the instructor or the trainer. You're going to evaluate the content, the materials, and take recommendation for improvement. And the debriefing stage is basically the information you get overall, especially in the evaluation stage, you use it to debrief and replan for future programs, future training programs. And this is a graphical illustration of the AHRD model, as I just went through, starting from the needs assessment to the design, develop, deliver, evaluate, and debrief. This significant implication. We believe that this study will have a great theoretical and practical significance. Theoretically, it will contribute to the body of literature on national training, national management literature. It will also inform international training, development, and management scholars and students. It will inform especially those who might be interested in exploring this study further. And it also help trainers to develop conceptual models, using this as a baseline or using this as a guide, this added model as a guide. And organizations like UNESCO can also, can also get benefit from this study, because whatever is found here, they can use it to help their expatriates or their employees who are working in sub-Saharan Africa, and specifically Ghana. Especially, and the World Bank is also an international organization that can also gain from that. And it can also help scholars, I had already mentioned that, but just to rephrase that, to help scholars to effectively conceptualize frameworks which integrates the relevant cultural and contextual factors of Ghana into their training programs. And this the conclusion of it. As stated, the proposed AHRD model, can be used effectively in sub-Saharan African countries, and specifically Ghana, to enhance training transfer in the respective organization in those African countries. And that we believe that training transfer can be achieved mainly if program planners and developers of cross-national training adopt, one, HRM and IHRM, International Human Resource Management practices that are culturally sensitive and that reflects the local management strategies in the local context. And finally, training design and delivery approaches using the AHRD model is going to be very helpful based on the suggestions that we propose in this research. So that's the conclusion, so time for questions.
Good. Are you looking at any specific type of organizations? Are you looking at NGOs, corporate, multinational? What type of, are you looking at this model for?
This model, it's not limited to any specific organization. However, our main focus will be on multinational organizations.
Have you been in contact with UNESCO and the World Bank?
No, I have not. But that's going to be one of the things on the agenda.
There are two specialists who have been looking at transfer of learning.
Okay.
In Africa in general.
Okay.
And they basically hit every single point that you can.
Oh, great.
Finding out in terms of difficulties and obstacles and factors.
Okay. Thank you.
Exactly. Who are these specialists?
UNESCO and World Bank.
You mean, okay, in general. I thought there are two specific individuals.
Well, they're full departments.
Yeah.
Well, all this is very interesting. I would suggest that you check if there was already any similar study from which you can learn or you can analyze, and because the world is very big, so
yes.
Africa is very big. You have many countries, so maybe somebody somewhere, or like the UNESCO. Yes.
Yeah, there are full reports.
Exactly.
And there's
Yes.
actually even a European report that just came out in 2012. So they've addressed that issue.
That will help.
Just
Just
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with cross-national management or cross-national training.
Okay.
I'm familiar with cross-cultural management, cross-cultural training. Do you make a distinction between the two, or is there any specific feature why you are talking cross-national instead of cross-cultural?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that cross-culture is specifically based on a specific culture. And in a specific country, there may be several dimensions of culture. So if you are talking about cross-cultural training, it could be more specific, to a particular maybe country, a particular country's culture. Like for example, in Ghana, even though we have a national culture, we do have indigenous cultures, So and also do have a national culture. You see, so that's why I'm focusing on the national aspect of it. We have a national culture, even though within that culture we have individual cultures. So that's why I want to differentiate between the two, even though there's elements of kind of that might overlap each other, but to say cross-national is the national culture of Ghana. We have a national culture that most people will relate to. And we have individual cultures within that particular, context.
Okay, that's it. Any more questions about other presentations? Okay, thank you very much for coming. and
Thank
your
you.
presentation.
So I'll have you guys here.
Is that-
So tomorrow's presentation.
Uh-huh.
So I'm your session.
Oh, okay.
But because the other two presentations got canceled, what, did you have a preference of what you wanted to do?
Oh, we can move us to a different.
Yeah, so there's another international session, and they only have 2 sessions, so what I think
Yeah.
would be best is we just move you
Yeah,
guys
and don't want
to
to
the
be-
third,
yeah.
to that session, so let me just show you where it's at. And we'll put a sign on the door.
Yeah, yeah.
Then,
And now they have they I think they all very slow.
so this one, it's the same time.
Some kind of
So
rearrangement.
it's just in West Chase.
The problem is that they want
Versus,
to
I think we were,
they want to know how to transfer
we
training.
were in Salon Beach, so I'll put a sign there and then just come over to West Chase.
Good. Are you? Good to see you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Your suit.
Tanzania has a
Yeah. Things good.
She's been here, she just been here 2 years.
yes, but there was a nice there was some
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How you doing? Good.
Training unit, but we don't call it university. Training center.
These are some of my students. This is Alex.
You can come.
Nice to meet you. Very interesting.
Interesting, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
Definitely some of the notions that you're putting forward. That's why I'm here. Just because, you know, I'm also at some point in the future I'm going to probably need to adapt to, you know, training here, learn what I've learned here, and then, you know, transfer the training back home to my culture.
Yes.
And this is completely different topic.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And you are from
China.
China. Okay. Oh, that's a good presentation.
All right.
Thank you.
Well,
Yes.
هيفا بليس كيفك؟ أنا البنت اللي حكيتها عنها الدكتورة كارن واكن كيف الأحوال؟ ماشي الحال؟ بعتقد أنت عملت ريفيجن لوحدة من البيبرز تبعتك بس ما كنت عارفة إنه هي لإلك
والله. I don't know.
لأنه يعني الكومنتس كانت